So Illinois, what have you seen from them with all the international guys?
Right.
Things like that.
Yeah, obviously, very explosive offensive team. They can hurt you in a lot of different ways. Everybody shoots threes. Everybody's a good decision maker. They don't play through the post, but they will if you switch, or they just like a matchup. But more than anything, they just kind of take what the defense gives them and they play. They put you in a lot of binds. Obviously, Wagler's a very good player, good with the basketball. Can hurt you in a lot of ways, but good spacing, good teaching. They know what they're doing. It's just one of those, games where you have to do a good job on the basketball. You can't get behind plays. If you get behind plays, it gets to hit or miss, and you don't like that as a coach, because everybody, can shoot threes, and everybody can spread you out. And then they're just an elite offensive rebounding team, and they do a great job of crashing. They do a great job of understanding the angles and where rebounds go, and they just fight like hell to get extra possessions. And I think that's where it starts with them. Is can you guard them? Can you box them out? And if you can't get past those two, you're probably getting beat. So I think that's where it is for not just us, but for anybody that plays them. Don't beat yourself. Don't turn the basketball over. Try to flip it on them. Get on the offensive glass yourself. But at the other end, you got to make it difficult. They're going to make some shots. And, they're the number one offense in the country. They're going to make some shots. You can't put them to the free throw line. You can't give them layups, and you can't give them rhythm threes. Easier said than done, because they're very efficient in what they do.
Matt, is coming back from a West Coast trip almost as difficult as being out there?
It's just basketball. I mean, I know there's some things that go into it, but you're doing your best to prepare for games out there. Then you're doing your best to help yourself from a mental and physical standpoint to get prepared for your next game. So there's some difficulties in it, but you're not. It's not overwhelming, right? People talk about us coming back last year, then having a tough second half of the season. It was still just put yourself in a good position, take care of business, play better. But you got to give Ohio State credit. They played better than we did in that second half. And you can look into it that way if you want to. And it's there. It's not something that's not there. I got you. But, it's also one of those mind over matter deals. It's like, how about we guard the guy in front of us? How about we get a rebound? How about we execute? Keep your focus, just on the purpose of the game, and understand what your job is and what you have to do. Does that maybe have a lingering effect mentally and physically? Sure, but it's not something you can't overcome.
So, I know you always say that everybody has a Division I scholarship on those rosters, but they're obviously missing a key guy. How does that change what Illinois looks like?
Yeah, I didn't change how they play. I mean, what's good for them is the fact that a key figure of their team is not going to be with them for a month, but then they get him back. And if they can get him and Ty Rodgers back also, they're already tough. Now you add two really tough dudes. Boswell's just a complete player. He's a two-way player. He affects winning. He can guard anybody. He can score if you need him to. He can play make if you need him to. Just a winner right there. Ty Rodgers is a tough dude, plays hard, rebounds. And so if I was Illinois, I'd be excited kind of where they're at, because now you got some guys. Sure, you want all your bullets in your gun, but now some guys are going to have to step up a little bit more and play a little bit more, and be more accountable. Everybody wants that role, right? And then when they get that role, man, it comes with more responsibility. But then they're going to get that punch in the arm two different times when he comes back, and when Kylan comes back, and Ty comes back. And so Illinois' got a complete team. If you look at certain teams, you're like, I wish a little bit here, wish a little bit there. With everybody healthy, they have a complete team. They have size, they have strength, great rebounding team, great passing team, great shooting team. Their defense is vastly improved. And so now that's the growth that you want. And obviously you want everybody healthy, but they have to feel really, really good. Because at the end of the day, it's, where you're going to be in those last 2 weekends in March and that first weekend in April. And, they got a team that can do it.
When you were first looking into Oscar, betting Oscar from a basketball standpoint, were there things you were looking for instinctively in his game beyond the rebounding that you needed to see in order to know you would fit what you're doing here?
The rebounding would have been enough. I'm sure you want more. Yeah, that's a good question. But yeah, the rebounding would have been enough. Like, after you swallowed that pill last year, and you have to, live through it. Like when you sit there and, why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? Why don't they do that? Well, if you get stops and you can't get rebounds, it's counterproductive. You're putting a lot of effort in there and the other team's getting the basketball and you're getting them to miss. So like, yeah, we would have pushed ahead just because every coach that's been around him, like, works hard, good guy, good teammate, tough, embraces the physicality of the game, one of the best rebounders in the country. The fact that he can organically score for us at times, even when things aren't raining for him, is really just a bonus. But yeah, I didn't jump out and say, hey, this guy's going to shoot 75% from the field, right? But he shoots the shots he shoots, he should shoot 75% from the field. I played with a guy that led the nation in field goal percentage, when anytime anybody made a big deal about it, he'd be like, oh, I shoot the ball from 3 feet. I should make it 80% of the time. But no, he's been everything we needed and more.
He's been pretty turnover averse too. I mean, maybe especially for big guys, or something about what he does.
He keeps things simple. Yeah, he doesn't and I also think it's a good thing. I used to say it about Grady Eifert is that when you don't get recruited, you don't have that shit build up. No one told you how great you were in your 15. Like, he was happy to play junior college basketball. Then he was happy to play at Washington State. Then he was happy to play at South Dakota State. Now he's happy to play at Purdue. He's been happy to play at every place he's been at. And I always say that, like, I'm lucky to be the coach of Purdue. Purdue's not lucky to have me. And the head has to leak over to your players. Like, our players are lucky to be at Purdue. Purdue's not lucky to have them. That's how you have to look at it from your perspective. Like, be grateful for the opportunity. He's one of those guys that's a non-recruited guy up until he was probably 21 years old, and so you're grateful. You're grateful for opportunities, you take it in, and hey, whatever you need me to do, I'll do. And when you have that attitude, like, that trickles down, and that makes for great chemistry.
You just give us kind of a post-mortem, how you guys approach the two-man game down in Bilodeau, and what worked, what didn't work, what
Yeah.
could have been better.
Yeah, well, you have to do your job. And so some of the cases we did our job and he hit tough shots. Other times, like when you don't accurately do your job, you're going to have consequences with it. I thought G made a really good steal at the end of the first half, getting his hands up in ball screen D. We didn't always get our hands up to help that guy. All right. Sometimes when you go out and you high hedge, you got to get your butt to the sideline. When you get your butt out towards the baseline and it goes on, it's going to drag out now instead of stopping the dribbler, at that angle. Now you got to be able to read that, and then you got to have an emergency switch at that time if you didn't get a good read. But then we have a low guy that you saw here, a couple times during the game. When they did pop, that low guy would rotate and take that guy. Then the guy who hedged it would go to the rim. Then at times we didn't do that. And so, like, when you look at it, when we did our job and then they scored, I always say that's on me. When we don't do our job and they score, that's not on me. That's on you. And so, like, you have to be able to have rules to what you're doing in ball screen D. Then you have to have rules when something goes awry. And then normally for us, our evacuation out of things is a switch. Now we don't like the matchups, but you didn't get anything off the action. So for them, to their credit, our number one thing was keeping Donovan Dent out of the paint. Because when he got in there, great things happened. When he didn't get in there, it was a better possession for us. We keep him out there at the end. We go there, we don't rotate out of it. Oscar handles it all, but we don't get our hands up in the play. We don't take it out and get a good angle on the ball screen. We don't evacuate, our situation and switch it. Now we have to rotate. We absolutely don't rotate. And so, like, there's a gauge to it. Like, offensively, I think when you watch the game and you're not have a great basketball background, you can see the progressions of a read, no different than the progressions of a read of a quarterback. Quarterback, you always say, hey, this happens, that's a check down, throw the ball away. That's just simple stuff when you watch in football. Well, basketball has reads too from an offensive standpoint, and everybody understands that a lot better because that's how we look at the game. But there's reads from a defensive standpoint, and at times we did a good job there, and at times we didn't. We just have to be more consistent. As a coach, you do things like when I called that timeout there late in the game, I didn't want what happened to be in play. They had him out of the action. They had him in the corner. And the one thing that happens there, and I didn't used to think this way, and I think this way now, is a lot of those possessions that get tight like they're at the end of the game, what ends up scoring, right? It's that rebound. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna yank out one of our best rebounders here to match up better, but then we're not gonna rebound better. So that was the thought in my mind there, but he was out of the equation. So we had Oscar with him and he was in the corner. So they ran, which we call stack action. They ran stack action and they went to a TK knocks it out. Now they hit the corner and then they bring him into the action. It had nothing to do with the play, and they played. And so like you can think it 10 different ways, but yeah, that's what happened.
That's what it seemed.
I don't know if you're scoring more directly off McDonald's plays this year, but it feels like you are. How has Sasha kind of expanded and added some new wrinkles to calling that down?
Yeah, he does a good job. He has a good feel. Gets us prepared going into the game. Sees what works that we do that'll work against that opponent. And if we don't feel good about it, then being able to adapt and adjust, going into the game, does a good job. It helps when you have a really, really good inbounds passer like we do. That makes everything look good.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Make sure you guys get your copy. So memorize all the names.